Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we gotta talk about all the different various black activists and race hustlers that are absolutely losing their minds because major corporations across the country have decided that they are done with these DEI policies, which means that these people who make their money off of sowing division in the United States of America, selling these DEI courses to corporations, and pushing their crappy policy ideas are going to see their wallets get a lot lighter, and I'm definitely here for it. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, we got to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
Well, Walmart has decided they're going to get rid of their DEI policies. Why? Because right-wing conservatives have been targeting a number of public companies, telling them they don't like what their support for transgender, LGBTQ, as well as black folks and other minorities.
So first of all, I just want to point out, if you didn't have anything to be grateful for this past Thanksgiving, you now have this Roland Martin segment, which is absolutely hilarious from top to bottom. And again, if Roland Martin wanted to make the case that DEI policies don't allow people to be hired that are just less qualified than other people, then I would ask Roland Martin to actually do a video on his Black Star network where the audio is in sync with the video. This is embarrassing. I did not alter the beginning of this video where it's clearly and obviously out of sync. This was uploaded onto his YouTube channel like this, and it may be the perfect cherry on top of this terrible video that the production value is also bad, while at the same time, Roland Martin is going to make the case that DEI doesn't actually lower quality, also support black media like Black Star Media, which is definitely 100% lower quality.
This is the Walmart US CEO speaking this morning on CBS This Morning, explaining their decision. Of course, Walmart is America's largest employer, one of the biggest companies in the world. So this is a huge decision. Listen.
Now, Roland is very upset over the fact that the Walmart CEO, the John Deere CEO, and a bunch of other companies have announced that they're no longer going to do these DEI initiatives. And one of the things that really bothers him is that Gayle King ends up asking the CEO of Walmart if he cares about diversity of ownership of the companies that supply Walmart their goods that they sell in their stores, and that CEO doesn't answer the question. But in addition to that, Roland Martin's really mad that this post-George Floyd promise that Walmart was going to spend $100 million on this foundation for racial equity appears to be ending, and we're not even the full 5 years in.
Is diversity among your suppliers still important to you at Walmart, John?
Well, starting with our company back in 1962, we were a small business, a single store that operated out of Rogers, Arkansas. And so we'll continue to do the things that we can do to ensure that small suppliers have a path to being successful, not only at Walmart, but in their business in total. You know, every year we really focus on made in the USA. About 2/3 of what we sell is either made, grown, or assembled right here in the United States. We have a program every summer called Open Call, where we welcome in small suppliers, and we welcome in people that have an idea, that are an entrepreneur, and they want to learn. So we're going to continue to lean into ensuring that we provide the very best pathways for small businesses, our suppliers, to be successful here in the store. If I had more time, I could take around the story and show you a few of those examples, but there are a lot of them, and there'll continue to be more.
Okay, so first of all, you saw right there, he didn't answer Gayle King's question. He didn't answer it at all. There also was this $100 million initiative that they had announced after the death of George Floyd. They're getting rid of that. It was they also were funding what it was called a Center for Racial Equity, a nonprofit that Walmart launched in 2020. It's supposed to be a 5-year initiative, and so that's also being shuttered.
Now look, Martin is obviously mad, he's obviously furious about this, but I just want to point out for everybody out there in the audience, the reason why Martin is mad, the reason why he's angry, is not for the average black American who will still get hired at Walmart. It is not for the average supplier of Walmart's goods that happens to be a black person or a black-owned company, because if they come in at the lowest prices, they will still be able to sell their goods through the gigantic gigantic superstores that are Walmarts. He's angry because his friends are this black race hustling class. The people like Ibram X. Kendi, who charge a bunch of money in order to give speeches to these companies. People like Robin DiAngelo, all these different various people who shake down these companies, end up selling them their courses as inoculation against lawsuits of racial discrimination, based on the idea that if they don't pay for these DEI initiatives, they will sue them for said racial discrimination. And a perfect example of how out of touch these black, woke class is with reality is this woman right here who leads this off, because everything she says is wrong, ridiculous, but also she's completely out of touch with how normal people talk and think about these issues.
Right. And I want people to know, when you talk about attacking, it's not just that they are writing articles or doing interviews. They are filing lawsuits after lawsuits after lawsuits. These small law firms, but they're powerful, are filing these lawsuits that companies then have to fight against, saying that woke policies or any DEI initiatives are in fact discriminatory, which is completely the opposite of what the problem is. DEI was there to fix discriminatory problems, but they have flipped it around and are using again the term reverse discrimination, reverse racism, which is no such thing as reverse racism. It's not even a real concept. It does not exist.
So first and foremost, as I talked about in a previous video, one of the tactics of race hustlers like this, like Al Sharpton, which I gave Jank credit for calling out of all people in my previous video, is to say that these companies are racist, is to back lawsuits and smear campaigns against these companies in order to get them to capitulate to their worldview and give their organizations money. And by the way, many a times this does not benefit black people as a whole. So this woman being angry at people suing these companies for discriminating against white people based on these initiatives that they're paying is kind of the pot calling the kettle black, because that's their tactic, and she's just mad that it's being used against them. Secondly, she says that there is no reverse discrimination or reverse racism.
Woke policies or any DEI initiatives are in fact discriminatory, which is completely the opposite of what the problem is. DEI was there to fix discriminatory problems, but they have flipped it around and are using again the term reverse discrimination, reverse racism,
as these white people call it, which again is an absurdity because it's just racism. Nobody uses the term reverse racism except for these woke scolds who are denying the fact that you can be racist against white people. But unlike their fictitious ideas about what's going on in the American corporation, we actually have numbers to back up our claims. Remember, post George Floyd, a bunch of these companies promised that they were going to hire less white people. And as Bloomberg pointed out in an article, they did exactly that. 93% of the new hires at these Fortune 100 companies were non-whites. And this was a stated goal of these companies, that they were going to actively discriminate against white people. And we saw that represented by the fact that they only hired 7% of white people, who make up 60% of the population. Now, it could be that those minorities were more qualified than the whites. If that were true, then that's fine. But these companies happen to say that they're going out of their way to not hire whites anymore. And then we saw that in the results. So a bunch of organizations decided that they were going to sue these companies that are bringing on people like Ibram X. Kendi and their ilk, who say you should actively discriminate against white people in order to make up for past discrimination. And obviously, these were easy lawsuits to win, because you have people quite literally saying, yes, we are discriminating against you based on the color of your skin, but it's okay because it's revenge for past discrimination that we say still affects everything, and we think that's the number one concern.
Reverse discrimination, reverse racism, which is no such thing as reverse racism. It's not even a real concept. It does not exist.
Now, I'll also point out that she said, oh, reverse racism is not a real thing, not a real concept that doesn't even exist. And again, I will point out that even if you were going to say it's not a real thing, which I would agree, it's just called racism. Your anti-white hatred is just racism. Let's be clear about that. But conceptually, it is a real thing. If you buy into the woke concept that black people can't be racist against white people and that's just reverse racism, then congratulations, then that concept totally exists. So this woman is totally off base, but again, it's the anti-white hatred that is fueling her. But in addition to that, she's in the race hustling industry, and if people are not paying attention to these race hustlers, that negatively impacts her pocketbook, and that's what she's concerned about. This isn't going to affect qualified black people at all the different various jobs that they have. That's not going to be an issue. This is only really going to affect the woke skull class, the black woke skull class, who sell these courses and programs to corporations around the country. It turns out that it's not profitable. It turns out that it's disastrous. It turns out that actively promoting anti-white hatred at a corporate level opens you up for racial discrimination lawsuits.
But this is what is the problem. And these corporations are buckling under the pressure. And I really want people to understand the impact of that, because what that means is that a person trying to get a job at Walmart, yes, we understand that's going to be an issue, but also a person who's trying to sell their products in Walmart. They are not going to actively seek out or retain the people they have now that are under any underrepresented group. That's women, that's LGBTQIA, that's Black, Latino, that's Asian, that's people with disabilities, that's women. And so what they're saying is what they're saying is they're evening out the playing ground, because they have said, are trying to suggest that we are all have equal chances in America.
Like many of you who heard that woman say, oh, let me break down all the different various issues. Black people aren't going to be hired at Walmart anymore. No, that's not the case. That's definitely not true. Have you been to a Walmart? Chances are, if you have, there are black people working at that Walmart. And then she's like, yeah, but it's even worse. Walmart's not going to go out of its way to bend over backwards to seek out and retain disabled black transgender midget farmers in order to source their bell peppers anymore. And I would just point out that Walmart is a huge store. They sell a lot of different products. They actually buy a lot of local products and local produce. And you, as somebody who wants to make money, should be seeking out Walmart, not the other way around, because they're a huge market for you. So the idea that you're not going to get the special privilege of somebody coming to you and making it their business to choose to do business with you when you don't have the hustle, when you don't have the ingenuity to try to get your stuff there, is absurd. Again, that should be on the supplier to make sure their stuff, or fight to get their stuff on the shelves of one of America's biggest retailers.
And so, of course, the opportunity for me to even sell, to supply, is going to be a problem. But they're to advertise on shows like yours, Martin, Roland, is completely not going to exist.
So again, while she's listing the dire consequences of getting rid of DEI at these companies like Walmart, she ends up going from nonsense about suppliers not being actively sought out by the company, which again, they shouldn't be sought about more than any other supplier, to, hey, Roland Martin, they're probably not going to advertise on your program anymore. And all I have to say is, listen, I already agreed to this. I already signed up for the contract. I'm already in support of this, but for whatever reason, this woman just wants to keep sweetening the pot for me, and I don't give a damn if Walmart advertises on Roland Martin anymore. Nobody should give a damn about that, because Roland Martin's show is terrible, and need I point out that in his intro, his audio wasn't even in sync. That's how low production value his show actually is. This YouTube video doesn't even have all that many views, and you are better served advertising on these very good channels, very smart channels, very individually run channels by Irish Puerto Ricans, so it will fill your DEI quota. And one of those channels that I could think of is called the actual Justice Warrior channel. You go advertise on them, Walmart company guy. It's definitely top tier. At least I can sync my audio, even though I'm one person doing this part in front of the camera and all the behind the scenes work by myself.
Also, what's scary is that they're wiping out any kind of education. So you're going to have a workforce of people who are not educated on how to deal with people that are different from them. And so the workforce, I promise you, will be hostile.
So Randy Bryant from the lower third actually is somebody who works in the DEI industry. This is somebody who profits off of selling racial division, and somebody who is likely to be out of a job if many many corporations stop giving her money. And she's trying to convince us of the dire consequences of getting rid of these DEI initiatives. And all I have to say is, look, lady, I've already agreed. I've already signed the contract. I don't know why you keep offering me more and more incentives to sign, because I'm totally on board with this, because you just keep making the proposition sound even better the more you speak. And now she's saying, look, we're not even going to have the education in order to deal with the non-whites in all these different corporations. We need our DEI education because white people would have no idea how to interact with any minorities unless we did those privilege marches and the white shaming and all the other ridiculous things that we do as DEI instructors in these major corporations that make those corporations vulnerable to racial discrimination lawsuits. Again, these courses are terrible, and studies have shown that the implicit bias training and all this nonsense that these people and their organizations put forward actually increase racial tensions at the workplace rather than help nerf those racial tensions. So everything she's saying about the dire consequences sound pretty good to me. They sound like not dire consequences at all. It sounds like people would be more likely and more apt to get along without the DEI instructors like this coming in and trying to reframe how they speak, adjust their language, and tell them how to treat the innocent baby angel special minorities that somehow are made of glass, and if you look at them the wrong way, they'll shatter into a million pieces, and that will be because your evil white racism is like a high note to the glass that they are made of.
They won't be, if you do get a job there, now it's more difficult if you're from an underrepresented group. But when you do get the job, the chances of being treated well, that you feel included and like you're in a safe environment, those chances have gone down. So, and if Walmart has done it, the sad thing is that other corporations are definitely going to follow suit. So I feel very nervous for everyone involved. I mean, I don't think people, like, again, I know I'm going on and on, but even like truckers, I mean, there's the people who bring in the supplies from people. There are contracts that say, okay, we're going to give 5% of our contracts to minority truckers.
Nope.
That's gone now. Even that 5% is gone.
And,
So it wasn't like we were getting much in the first place, but it's now non-existent.
Now, of course, she says, oh, what about the truckers? They said that they would take 5% of their supply from minority truckers, and now that's going to be gone from the contracts. And I will just point out, when you had quotas that said that you were going to take this percentage of Jewish people into American universities, those were considered by Jewish people who thought that they could earn more than the quota percentage in terms of seats at universities as negative discrimination. But this woman thinks so lowly of black truckers that 5% of the contracts at Walmart is good enough. So guaranteeing that is what they need, because she thinks that black people are just way worse at trucking and therefore Walmart wouldn't want to do business with them. Again, if you actually had pride, if you actually had respect for the minority groups that you were talking about, then you would advocate for more for them, and you would say that they can compete in a fair and open market rather than trying to coddle them and trying to tilt in their favor for people who don't deserve it, when there's all these different various minority groups who are full of people that are willing to work and are willing to earn it. In addition to that, I will point out that she kind of flips the reality on its head when she says they're only guaranteed 5%, because as I mentioned many a times on this channel, and you can look at this Bloomberg article, when the Fortune 100 companies promised to do DEI and no longer hire white people, they only got 7% of their employees from the white population. The other 93% was from minorities, and that Bloomberg article is congratulating them, even though this amounts to racial discrimination against white people.
And even the term DEI, they can't even use the term. They have made it where it cannot be used in any materials or discussed at all. And the term Latinx. If you want to talk about the level of control that these law firms that are doing these lawsuits are having, they're making them so scared to even say the word.
Again, it's very important for you to understand that this person is labeled as like a DEI instructor by Roland Martin. So she's somebody who lives in that world, who makes money off of selling this crap. And now she's complaining that, oh, if we get rid of this, then corporations will no longer be able to say Latin X. And all I have to say to that proposition is I agree. We should not be saying Latin X in any context. It is not something that anybody I've ever heard, and I'm half Hispanic myself, would want to be called. It is a woke term made up by professors, and it's enforced on the Latino population by people who think the fact that they speak a gendered language is dirty, filthy, and disgusting, and only the most ridiculous and comical people, like this DEI activist right here, would put that on the top of their priorities. So let us get this straight. If they get rid of DEI, they will no longer be actively discriminating against white people. They will no longer be funding organizations like Black Lives Matter. They will actually be hiring people based on merit, going to suppliers based on merit, and stupid wokey terms that nobody uses will no longer appear in corporate literature, and they will no longer try to force their employees to speak with this ridiculous, absurd left-wing language. So those 5 things right there seem like unbelievable. Top tier. I would sign up for that right away, and I know all of you out there in the audience would sign up for that, so yeah, I'm in. I sold. This woman right here did more than any person on planet Earth to convince me that DEI is trash, and getting rid of it would be awesome.
Joe, this is all because this right-winger right here, Robbie Starbuck, hit them last week and said, I'm going to be releasing a story on all of your woke policies.
Now, they end up reading a tweet from Robbie Staubach because he's been doing some excellent reporting on DEI initiatives in the corporate world, and Roland Martin reads it in its entirety, and it takes a really long time. So I think this is a solid place for me to wind down this video, but I do want to say that immediately after reading that tweet, Roland Martin holds up a book entitled White Fear, and he's like, look, they're trying to take everything. White people don't just want 95%, they want 100%.
Joe, did I not call it?
Yeah, I mean,
I try. I've been telling everybody since 2009, we're living in the age of white minority resistance. And these white folks like this guy right here, they want to get rid of any program that helps Black folks or any other minority group, and in their minds, oh, no, we don't want just 95% of the money. We want all of the money.
And they're willing to do anything in order to do that, and the panel just continues along these ridiculous lines. And again, I couldn't be happier, because the people who are going to feel the negative impacts of this are not your average everyday Black person. They're not your hardworking Black person or anything of the sort. The people who are going to lose money are the DEI instructor that they had on this panel, are people like Ibram X. Kendi, are people like Robin DiAngelo, all these different various woke scolds who make money wokeifying your corporations. They're the ones who are at a loss right here. So they're trying to tie, in a very cynical way, their jobs and their own personal success to the success of the minority groups that they purport to represent as a whole, when nothing could be further from the truth. Again, these programs benefit various different organizations that profit off of sowing division, and as we have talked about many a times on this channel, including in this video, when they do the DEI courses in corporations, it actually makes the environment less tolerant and people more weary of interacting with minorities or any other group that's not their own. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute meltdown over them getting rid of DEI. Till next time.